Commander Vexthal stared at his 6 hands as they shook uncontrollably. The metallic walls of the Galactic Rehabilitation Center felt cold against his chitinous skin. 30 years had passed since the human war ended, but the nightmare still came every sleep cycle. His compound eyes, once sharp enough to spot enemy ships across star systems, now struggled to focus on simple objects. Dr. Naldis sat patiently across the table. Her blue tentacles swaying gently, she breathed. She had treated thousands of war veterans from across the galaxy, but Vexthal's case was different. He was the only Corvonian commander to survive direct combat with humans and live to tell about it. "Commander, you've been here for 3 months now," Dr. Naldis said softly. "The flashbacks are getting worse. Talking about what happened might help." Vexthal's mandibles clicked nervously. "You don't understand, Doctor, what we faced out there. It wasn't warfare as we know it. It was something else entirely." The doctor leaned forward, her large black eyes showing genuine concern. "The Galactic Council needs to understand what happened during the human conflict. Your testimony could prevent future wars." "Future wars?" Vexthal let out a bitter laugh. "Doctor, after what I witnessed, no species in this galaxy will ever be foolish enough to attack humans again." He stood up slowly, his battle-scarred Karapochi creaking with each movement. Through the window, he could see the busy spaceport where ships from 100 different worlds came and went. Once he had commanded a fleet that could destroy entire star systems. Now he couldn't even board a transport shuttle without having panic attacks. "We called it Operation Cosmic Dawn," Vexthal began, his voice distant. "The Corvonian High Command thought it would be our greatest victory. Humans had just discovered faster-than-light travel. Their ships were slow, clunky metal boxes compared to our sleek biovessels. Their weapons were kinetic projectiles while we wielded plasma that could melt through battleship armor." Dr. Naldis activated a recording device, a small crystal that glowed softly blue. "What made the High Command decide to attack resources?" Vexthal said simply. "The Sol system was rich in rare minerals. Earth itself was a perfect world. For colonization, the humans numbered only 8 billion across their entire system. We had conquered species 10 times larger with ease." He walked to the window, pressing one hand against the cool glass. "I was young then, ambitious. I had led successful campaigns against the Zenthri rebels and the crystal miners of Kepler 442. The Emperor himself chose me to lead the advanced scout fleet. It was supposed to be a routine conquest." "Tell me about first contact," the doctor prompted gently. Vexthal's eyes darkened. "We dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of their system on a Tuesday. I remember because humans are obsessed with their calendar cycles. Our sensors immediately detected their primitive warning beacons. We expected surrender broadcasts, maybe some desperate evacuation attempts." He paused, his breathing becoming rapid instead. "We got a transmission from something called Luna Base. It was their moon, turned into a military outpost. The base commander was a human named Park Jamin." "What did he say?" "Our translation computers had some trouble with human languages at first. When we broadcast our standard surrender demand, Park's response was short. Just 3 words that would haunt me forever." Vexthal's voice dropped to a whisper. "Come and take it." Dr. Naldis made notes on her tablet. "That seemed like a typical military response. Why did it affect you so strongly?" "Because of how he said it, Doctor." There was no fear in his voice, no desperation. He sounded excited, like we had just offered him the greatest gift in the galaxy. Vexthal turned back to face her. "We didn't know then that humans have a concept called psychological warfare. They don't just fight with weapons. They fight with their minds, their emotions, their very souls." The commander sat back down, his legs suddenly weak. My intelligence officers assured me that Lunar Base housed maybe 300 humans, light defensive weapons, basic shield generators. Our assault ships could level the entire facility in minutes. But that's not what happened. No. Vexthel shook his head slowly. What happened was our first lesson in human warfare. Park Jamin didn't just defend Lunar Base. He turned it into a weapon. Every corridor was a trap. Every room was designed to kill. When my warriors breached the outer walls, they found themselves in a maze of death. He looked directly at Dr. Naldis, his compound eyes reflecting the room's harsh lighting. Humans don't fight like other species, Doctor. Most civilized races follow rules of engagement. We target military installations, avoid civilian casualties, accept surrender when offered. Humans fight like every battle is their last battle. Like losing means the extinction of their entire species. That must have been difficult for your forces to adapt to. Adapt. Vexthel laughed bitterly. Doctor, you can't adapt to chaos. You can't prepare for an enemy that views their own death as just another weapon to use against. You, Park Jamin, didn't just want to stop us from taking Lunar Base. He wanted to send a message to every Corvonian ship in the system. This is what awaits you. The room fell silent except for the gentle hum of the rehabilitation center's life support. Systems. Dr. Naldis waited patiently as Vexthel gathered his thoughts. We lost 1,200 warriors taking Lunar Base. He finally continued. 1,200 of the Empire's finest soldiers. Killed by 300 humans using improvised weapons and suicide tactics. When we finally secured the facility, we found Park's body in the command center. He had stayed at his post until the very end, calling in artillery strikes on his own position. Vexthel's hands began shaking again. But the worst part, Doctor, was what we found in his personal quarters, pictures of his family, his mate, his offspring, and a letter addressed to his daughter, explaining why Daddy wouldn't be coming home. He knew he was going to die, planned for it, and still fought like a demon. That was just the beginning, wasn't it? Oh yes, Vexthel nodded grimly. Lunar Base was just their opening move. We thought we had won a great victory. The Emperor promoted me, sent reinforcements, ordered the full invasion to begin. We had no idea that humans had been preparing for this moment since they first looked up at the stars. The crimson dawn of Luna's artificial day cycle cast long shadows across the barren landscape as Vexthel's dropships descended like metal vultures from his command vessel. He watched through tactical displays as his 47th Strike Division prepared for what should have been a simple mop-up operation. Lunar Base sat before them like a collection of silver bubbles connected by thin metal tubes, looking more like a research station than a military fortress. Target analysis complete. Commander, his tactical officer's ECMO reported. His for eyes scanning holographic displays. Minimal energy signatures. Basic defensive shields. Estimated garrison strength. 200 to 300 humans maximum. Vexthel nodded confidently. His division consisted of 800 elite Corvonian shock troopers, each equipped with plasma rifles that could melt through starship hulls. They had conquered fortified worlds with far less firepower. Begin the assault. Standard formation. I want this finished before their main fleet arrives. The first wave of dropships touched down on Luna's grey dust with precision that would have impressed military academies across the galaxy. Corvonian warriors emerged in perfect battle lines, their bioarmor gleaming under the harsh sunlight. Their plasma rifles hummed with deadly energy as they advanced on the nearest dome structure. Breach charges ready, Commander, came the voice of Captain Exfil through the communications ray. No resistance detected. They might have evacuated. Vexthel watched from his command ship as the blue-white flash of plasma cutters sliced through lunar base's outer walls like hot knives through soft metal. The holes opened wide enough for his warriors to pour through in organized waves. Everything was proceeding according to plan. Then the silence struck him as wrong. "Vexville, report," Vexville commanded, leaning forward in his command chair. "What do you see inside?" Static crackled for a moment before his captain's voice returned. "Confusion evident, sir. The dome is completely empty. No humans, no equipment. Just empty rooms and corridors. It's like they just vanished." Vexthel's mandibles clicked with annoyance. "Impossible. Our sensors detected life signs. Continue the sweep. Check every room. Every tunnel." That's when they encountered Sergeant Lee Doyun. She appeared like a ghost in the maintenance tunnels that connected Lunar Base's various sections. The first Corvonian patrol never saw her coming. Security cameras later showed a slim human female, in dark combat gear, moving through ventilation shafts that seemed impossibly narrow for any living being. She struck without warning, planting explosive charges on support beams before disappearing back into the maze of service. "Tunnels. Contact. Contact." Vexville's voice crackled over the radio. "We're under attack." Explosions in Section 7. The ceiling just collapsed on Alpha Squad. Vexville gripped his command console tighter. "How many attackers? What's your tactical assessment?" I don't know, sir. The explosions seem to be coming from everywhere at once. The humans are using the base's own infrastructure against us." What Vexthal didn't know was that Lunar Base had been designed specifically for this moment. Every tunnel, every room, every corridor had been carefully planned by human military engineers who understood that their enemy would be technologically superior. They couldn't win with better weapons, so they had to win with better thinking. Lee Doyun had spent 3 years learning every inch of Lunar Base. She knew which beams supported which sections, which tunnels connected to which rooms, which systems could be turned into weapons. While Corvonian warriors searched empty chambers, she moved through maintenance shafts like a predator stalking prey. Her first major strike came when Captain Vexville's unit tried to secure the base's power core. Lee had rigged the entire section with mining charges taken from Lunar's industrial equipment. As the Corvonians entered the chamber, she triggered the explosives remotely, bringing down tons of metal and rock. 15 warriors died instantly, their bioarmor useless against crushing debris. "She's in the walls." One surviving soldier screamed over the radio. "The human is moving through the walls." Vexthal ordered his reserve units forward, but Lee was always one step ahead. She had turned Lunar Base into a three-dimensional chess game where she knew every move while her enemies stumbled blindly through her trap. Motion sensors triggered explosive charges, opening doors activated acid sprays taken from mining equipment. Even the base's artificial gravity systems had been weaponized, creating sudden changes that sent Corvonian warriors floating helplessly into prepared kill zones. "Commander, we've lost contact with Bravo and Charlie squads," Vexville reported, his voice tight with fear. "This isn't warfare. This is some kind of nightmare." For 6 hours, Lee Doyun played a deadly game of cat and mouse with an entire division of alien warriors. She used every dirty trick, every improvised weapon, every psychological advantage she could think of. Mining lasers became sniper rifles, construction drones became mobile bomb platforms. Even the base's food dispensers had been converted into chemical weapon distributors. "How many of them are there?" Vexthal demanded, watching his casualty. "Reports climb higher and higher. Double quotes, sir. I think it might just be one human. One female. We keep seeing the same figure on security feeds, but she's everywhere at once." The final confrontation came in Lunar Base's central hub. Where Lee had prepared a masterpiece, She had spent months placing shaped charges throughout the facility's main support structure, all connected to a single detonator. When the remaining Corvonian forces finally cornered her in the command center, she was waiting for them. Vexthel later reviewed the security footage dozens of times. Trying to understand what he had witnessed, Lee stood in the center of the room, surrounded by 40 armed Corvonian warriors, their plasma rifle aimed directly at her. She should have been terrified. She should have surrendered. She should have begged for mercy. Instead, she smiled, not a grimace of defiance or a snarl of hatred, but a genuine smile of satisfaction, like she had just completed a difficult but rewarding task. She looked directly into the nearest camera, as if she could see Vexthel watching from his command ship, and mouthed 3 words in perfect Corvonian. "Welcome to Earth." Then she pressed the detonator. The explosion that followed destroyed half of Lunar Base and killed everyone inside, including Lee herself. When rescue teams finally reached the rubble 3 hours later, they found her body clutched round the detonation device. Her fingers had to be surgically removed from the trigger mechanism. In her jacket pocket, they discovered a handwritten note in both human English and translated Corvonian. It reads simply, "Welcome to the neighborhood. Population. You're about to find out. Vexthel lost 423 warriors taking Lunar Base, against 1 human female with improvised weapons and a willingness to die for her cause. The victory that should have taken an hour had cost him half his division and taught him a terrifying lesson about human warfare. They didn't just fight to win. They fought to send a message, and the message was clear. Every step forward would cost more than the last, and humans would make them pay in blood for every inch of ground they took." After the disaster at Lunar Base, Vexthel knew the humans would be ready for him on Mars, but the red planet looked so peaceful from orbit, covered in sprawling industrial complexes and terraforming stations that stretched across its rusty surface like metal spider. Intelligence reports showed mostly civilian populations, miners, engineers, families who had come to build humanity's second home. Mars will be different, Vexthel told his remaining officers as their fleet approached the planet. "We learned from Luna, no more small units. We hit them with everything at once." His tactical display showed over 50 human settlements scattered across Mars, connected by a network of underground transport tunnels that mining companies had built over decades. The largest complex, New Sol, housed nearly 2 million humans in a cluster of dome cities near the planet's equator. It should have been an easy target for his remaining forces. Captain Kim Hanwoo was waiting for them. The first sign that Mars wouldn't be the easy victory Vexthel expected came when his dropships Entei read the atmosphere. What looked like industrial mining lasers suddenly swiveled skyward, their powerful beams designed to cut through solid rock now focused on Corvonian vessels. 3 dropships exploded in brilliant flashes before Vexthel realized what was happening. "Evasive maneuvers," he shouted into his communicator. "All units, evasive maneuvers." "They're using mining equipment as weapons," from his command ship. Vexthel watched in horror as massive excavation lasers tracked his aircraft across the Martian sky. These weren't military weapons. They were industrial tools meant for carving tunnels and processing ore. But in human hands, they became deadly. Artillery that could reach halfway to orbit. The landing was chaos. Half his dropships were destroyed before they touched ground. The survivors found themselves scattered across Mars in small groups, cut off from their main force and surrounded by a landscape that seemed to shift and change around them. Kim had spent 3 years preparing Mars for invasion. Every mining tunnel was now a highway for human defenders. Every processing plant was a fortress. Every piece of industrial equipment was a potential weapon. The atmospheric processes that were supposed to make Mars breathable for humans now pumped out toxic gases that Corvonian biofilters couldn't handle. Sir, we can't advance on New Sol. Reported Major Kexthal from the surface. The humans have turned their transport tunnels into attack routes. They're hitting us from underground, then disappearing before we can respond. Vexthal studied his tactical maps in frustration. Red dots marked human positions. But they kept moving in patterns that made no sense. The humans weren't defending fixed positions. They were flowing through Mars like water, using the planet's industrial infrastructure as a three-dimensional battlefield. They know every tunnel, every facility, every hiding spot. Kexthal continued, and sir, they're not just soldiers down here. There are civilians fighting alongside them, including younglings. That's when Vexthal met Lieutenant Choi Min-young. Though he didn't know her name at the time, she led the resistance in the northern mining settlements, where human families had lived and worked for generations. These weren't military personnel. They were miners, engineers, teachers, shopkeepers, but under Choi's leadership, they became something far more dangerous. She had organized the civilians into militia units that moved through the tunnel systems like they were walking through their own homes. Because they were, every tunnel, every maintenance shaft, every emergency exit was familiar territory. They knew which routes connected to which facilities, which passages could be flooded or sealed, which chambers could be turned into traps. We captured a human settlement in the Mariner Valley, reported Captain Vex Cole. But, sir, something's wrong. The buildings are empty. But we keep hearing sounds, footsteps, voices. Like ghosts are walking through the walls. What the Corvonians didn't understand was that Choi had taught the civilians to use the settlement's own infrastructure against invaders. Hidden passages connected every building. Emergency bunkers became sniper positions. Even the children's schools had been converted into command centers connected to the tunnel network. The worst part was the dust storms. Mars was famous for its planet-wide dust storms that could last for months, turning day into night and reducing visibility to mere meters. During the invasion, Kim's forces used these storms like a weapon. They would wait for the worst weather, then emerge from their tunnels to strike at isolated Corvonian units. They moved like spirits in that red dust. Vexthal remembered, his voice shaking. Our sensors couldn't track them. Our weapons couldn't target them. They would appear out of nowhere, kill our sentries, and vanish back into the storm. We'd find our warriors with their throats cut, human footprints in the dust leading back into the darkness. The psychological warfare was as devastating as the physical attacks. Corvonian soldiers began to fear every shadow, every sound, every gust of wind that might hide a human attacker. They stopped sleeping. They stopped eating. They started shooting at dust devils and rock formations, convinced that humans were lurking everywhere. But the moment that broke Vexthal's spirit came in a small mining town called Olympia Station. His forces had been trying to secure the settlement for days, losing warriors to booby traps and sniper fire. When they finally cornered the last group of human defenders in an elementary school, Vexthal thought the battle was over. That's when he met Songy and Dashji. She was 12 years old, with pigtails and a school uniform that was too big for a small frame. She looked like any child from any species across the galaxy. Innocent, vulnerable, someone who should have been protected from the horrors of war. But when Vexthal's warriors surrounded her in the school's main hallway, she didn't cry or beg for mercy. Instead, she reached into her backpack. I remember thinking she was going to show us a tour or maybe a picture of her family. Vexthal whispered to Dr. Naldis, But what she pulled out was a mining charge, a real explosive device that she had learned to operate. The little girl looked directly at Vexthel with eyes that seemed far too old for her face. She spoke in perfect Corvonian, the words carefully, practiced. "My teacher says you came to hurt my family. She taught me how to stop you. We tried to talk to her," Vexthel continued, his voice breaking. "We told her we wouldn't hurt her if she put down the explosive. But she just smiled and said, 'I know you won't hurt me, because I won't let you.'" Song Yoonji pressed the detonator while looking directly into Vexthel's eyes. The explosion killed her instantly, along with 2 of his warriors and half the school building. In the rubble, they found her teacher's lesson plans. Choi Min-young had been teaching the children not just reading and mathematics, but also how to use mining equipment as weapons and how to set booby traps. She was just a child, Vixthel said, tears streaming down his alien face. But she fought like a warrior. Like every human we encountered on Mars, they didn't see themselves as civilians or soldiers. They saw themselves as defenders of their home, and they would do anything, sacrifice anything, to protect it. The battle for Mars lasted 8 months. Vexthel lost over 2,000 warriors trying to secure a planet that humans had turned into a giant weapon. Every victory came at a cost that made him question whether winning was worth it. And deep in his mind, a terrible thought began to grow. If this was how humans fought when they were defending their colonies, what would they do when someone threatened Earth itself? Earth hung before the Corvonian fleet like a blue marble against the black void of space, beautiful and peaceful from orbit. But Vexthel knew better now. After Lunar Base and Mars, he understood that this serene planet was the most dangerous place in the galaxy. Every cloud might hide a weapon. Every city might be a trap. Every human might be a soldier waiting to strike. Final assault begins in 6 hours, Vexthel announced to his remaining fleet commanders. Target priority is complete planetary occupation. No mercy, no prisoners. We end this war today. His fleet had been reduced to 60 ships after the disasters on Mars. Nearly half his original force was gone, destroyed by humans using mining equipment and improvised weapons. But 60 warships should still be enough to conquer one primitive planet. At least, that's what he told himself as he stared at Earth's swirling atmosphere. General Han Jae-sun was waiting for them, from his command bunker deep beneath Seoul. Han watched the alien fleet approach through satellite feeds. He was an old man, gray-haired and scarred from decades of military service, but his eyes burned with the fire of someone who had prepared his entire life for this moment. Around him, holographic displays showed the status of Earth's defenses, a network of weapons, traps, and desperate measures that spanned the entire globe. "Sir, the Corvonian fleet is entering our atmosphere," reported his aide, Colonel Park Min-ho. "Multiple dropships detected. They're targeting major population centers simultaneously." Han nodded calmly. "Send the signal. Operation Fortress begins now, across Earth." Humans who had been living normal lives just hours before suddenly transformed into a planetary defense force. Teachers became snipers, doctors became bomb makers, children became messengers carrying ammunition through subway tunnels. Every human on Earth had spent the last 3 years preparing for this day, and now their preparation would be tested. The first Corvonian dropships landed in downtown Tokyo to find the city completely empty. Streets that should have been filled with millions of people were eerily silent. Buildings stood open, their windows dark, their doors swinging in the wind. It looked like the entire population had simply vanished. "Sir, Tokyo is deserted," reported Captain Exma. "We're detecting massive underground movement, but the service is completely abandoned." That's when the city came alive. What the Corvonians didn't know was that every major city on Earth had been converted into a fortress. Buildings that looked normal from the outside were actually connected by hidden tunnels. Office stores had been turned into sniper nests. Shopping malls had become weapons factories. Even the subway systems had been converted into military highways where human defenders could move unseen beneath the city. In Seoul, Commander Yoon So-young led the defense of humanity's most prepared battleground. She was a small woman who looked more like a college professor than a military commander. But she had spent 5 years turning Seoul into the most dangerous city in human space. Every street was a kill zone. Every building was a fortress. Every civilian was a trained fighter. Remember, she told her fighters over the radio, "We're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to make them regret ever coming here." The battle for Seoul began when Corvonian forces tried to secure the city's main transportation. However, what they found was a maze of tunnels, barriers, and traps that seemed to extend infinitely in all directions. Human defenders appeared from manholes, from building windows, from storm drains. They fought with military weapons when they had them, and with kitchen knives when they didn't. Vexthel watched the battle reports with growing horror. "How many human combatants are we facing in Seoul, sir?" "It's impossible to determine," his intelligence officer replied. "Every human in the city appears to be fighting. Soldiers, police, firefighters, shopkeepers, students, elderly civilians, even children are carrying supplies and operating communications equipment in the subway tunnels beneath Seoul." Yoon's forces had created an underground battlefield that Corvonian warriors couldn't comprehend. Train cars had been converted into mobile fortresses that moved through the tunnel system, appearing to attack and then disappearing back into the darkness. Station platforms had become sniper positions with overlapping fields of fire. Even the electrical systems had been weaponized, creating zones where Corvonian bioarmor would malfunction. "They're using their own city as a weapon," Vexthel realized. "Every piece of infrastructure has been turned against us. The humans fought in ways that violated every rule of civilized warfare. When Corvonian forces captured a hospital, they found it rigged with explosives. When they tried to use human water supplies, they discovered the water had been poisoned. When they attempted to set up command posts in office buildings, the buildings collapsed around them, sir. We've taken the government district," reported Major Kexthel from Seoul city center. "But the humans destroyed everything before retreating. All their computers are melted. All their files are burned. Even their food supplies have been contaminated." Han had prepared for this moment. Rather than let the Corvonians use Earth's resources, he had ordered everything of value to be destroyed. Power plants were rigged to explode. Water treatment facilities were contaminated. Even farms had been salted so nothing would grow. If the aliens wanted Earth, they would inherit a poisoned wasteland. But Han's final surprise was waiting in the deepest bunker beneath Seoul. When Vexthel's forces finally fought their way to the government's emergency command center, they expected to find surrender documents or perhaps a final desperate broadcast instead. They found General Han Jae-sung sitting calmly at a metal desk, his hands resting on a device that looked like nothing they had ever seen before. "General Han Jae-sung of the Earth Defense Force," the old man said in perfect Corvonian. "I've been waiting to meet you, Commander Vexthel." Vexthel entered the bunker cautiously, his plasma rifle trained on the human general. "You will surrender immediately. Your resistance is over." Han smiled sadly. "Commander, do you know what this device is?" He gestured to the strange machine on his desk. "A communications ray, a computer." "It doesn't matter. Your planet is defeated. This," Han said calmly, "is the Yellowstone Protocol. A device connected to seismic charges placed throughout the Yellowstone caldera in North America. With the press of a button, I can trigger the largest supervolcanic eruption in Earth's history. Vexthal's mandibles click nervously. You're bluffing. No species would destroy their own planet. Hans' eyes never left Vexthal's face. Commander, you fought us on Luna, on Mars, in our cities and our tunnels. Have you seen any evidence that humans will surrender rather than fight? The alien commander felt something cold settle in his stomach. Round the bunker, other human defenders stood quietly, all of them looking at Han with expressions of calm acceptance. These people knew they were about to die, and they were at peace with it. If I activate this device, Han continued, the Yellowstone eruption will throw enough ash into the atmosphere to cause a planetary winter. It will kill every human on Earth within a year. But it will also make the planet uninhabitable for your species for centuries. You can have Earth, Commander, but you can have it as a ball of molten rock and poisoned air. Vexthal realized he was looking into the face of madness, not the screaming insanity of a broken mind, but the cold, calculated madness of a species that would choose extinction over slavery. You would kill 8 billion of your own people to deny us victory. Han nodded slowly. Commander, humans have a saying, give me liberty or give me death. We've chosen death. The question is, do you want to rule over ashes, or do you want to go home? In that moment, Vexthal understood that the war was over, not because his forces had been defeated, but because winning would cost more than losing. These humans would literally destroy their own world rather than let it be conquered. And from the calm expressions on every human face in the bunker, he knew Han wasn't bluffing. The Corvonians had come to conquer a planet instead. They had discovered something that would haunt their nightmares for generations, a species so committed to freedom that they would choose mutual destruction over surrender the moment General Han Jae-sung's finger hovered over the Yellowstone protocol device. Vexthal knew the war was over, not because the Corvonians had lost, but because winning would mean inheriting a dead world. The old human general sat in his underground bunker, surrounded by the ruins of Seoul, completely prepared to turn Earth into a ball of molten rock rather than let it be conquered. Stand down all forces, Vexthal commanded through his communicator, his voice heavy with defeat. Begin immediate withdrawal to orbit. Han lowered his hand from the device, but didn't move away from it. A wise decision, Commander. But this conversation isn't over. That's when the real shock began. As Corvonian forces retreated from Earth's surface. Human transmission rays across the planet came online simultaneously. Not the desperate broadcasts of a defeated enemy, but coordinated communications from a species that had been playing a much larger game than anyone realized. Commander Vexthal, came a voice from his ship's communication system. This is Agent Kang Min-ho of Human Intelligence. I think we need to talk. Vexthal's compound eyes widened in horror. That voice was speaking from inside his own command ship, using Corvonian communication protocols that should have been impossible for humans to access. How are you on this frequency? This is a secure military channel. I'm not on your ship. Commander, I'm on Corvan Prime, in your capital city, where I've been living for the past 6 years. The implications hit Vexthal like a plasma blast to the chest. If humans had infiltrated the Corvonian homeworld, if they had been there for years without being detected, then everything he thought he knew about this war was wrong. Impossible, he whispered. Our security systems would have detected any human presence. Kang Min-ho's laugh was cold and professional. Commander, we've been preparing for a galactic contact since we first detected your radio transmissions 30 years ago. Did you really think we'd wait passively for you to come to? US, over the next few hours, the true scope of human preparation became clear. While the Corvonian Empire had been planning their invasion of the Sol system, humans had been quietly infiltrating Corvonian space, using their primitive technology and natural adaptability. They had placed sleeper agents throughout the Empire. Kang Minho had been one of dozens of human agents who had undergone surgical modifications to appear as various alien species. He had lived on Corvan Prime for 6 years, working as a maintenance technician in the capital's industrial district. During that time, he had identified and mapped critical infrastructure, government facilities, and military installations. "We knew you were coming," Kang explained during the emergency communication session. "Your species isn't very good at keeping secrets. We've been monitoring your communications for decades, but infiltration was only part of the human strategy." The real revelation came when Kang began listing locations throughout the Corvonian Empire: power plants, water treatment facilities, government buildings, military bases. Each location had been carefully mapped, studied, and in many cases, seeded with human technology. Antimatter devices, Kang said matter-of-factly, 57 of them, placed in critical infrastructure points across your empire, each one powerful, enough to level a city. Vexthal felt his world collapsing round him. "You're bluffing. Humans don't have antimatter technology." "Commander, we've had antimatter weapons for 20 years. We just never advertised the fact. The bombs in your cities are real, and they're all connected to a single command system. If Earth had been destroyed, if our people had been wiped out, those devices would have activated automatically." The truth was devastating. While the Corvonian Empire had been focused on their military superiority, humans had been playing a different game entirely. They had never intended to win through direct confrontation. Their entire defense strategy had been designed to make conquest impossible by ensuring that attacking Earth would result in the destruction of the attacker's home world. Mutual assured destruction, Han explained from his bunker, an old human concept. "If you destroy us, we destroy you. Simple and effective." Dr. Neldis interrupted Vexthal's recollection. "But surely your empire could have continued the war. 57 bombs, even antimatter ones, couldn't destroy your entire civilization." Vexthal's mandibles clicked sadly. "Doctor, it wasn't about the physical damage. It was about what those bombs represented. Humans had been inside our most secure facilities for years. They knew our weaknesses, our secrets, our plans. They could have activated those devices at any time during the war." The peace negotiations that followed were unlike anything in galactic history. Instead of conquered humans begging for mercy, it was the Corvonian Empire pleading for a way to end the conflict without losing face, the humans. Led by General Han and supported by their hidden agents throughout Corvonian space, dictated terms that ensured the war would never be repeated. They didn't want territory or tribute. Vexthal remembered. They wanted guarantees. Binding agreements that no Corvonian ship would ever enter human space again. Trade agreements that gave them access to galactic technology in exchange for their silence about our military capabilities. The human commanders who had fought so desperately to defend their worlds paid the ultimate price for their victory. Colonel Park Jamin died in the rubble of Lunar Base. His body never recovered from the wreckage. Sergeant Lee Do-yoon died in the explosion she triggered her final act of defiance. Captain Kim Hyun-woo died in the Martian tunnels, leading a final assault against Corvonian positions. Lieutenant Choi Min-young died defending the mining families she had trained to fight. Little Song Yoon-ji died as she had lived, protecting a home with desperate courage. Commander Yoon So-young died in the Seoul subway tunnels. her body found clutching a detonator that had brought down an entire city block on top of advancing Corvonian F. Authors, each death was a tragedy, but together they formed a message that echoed across the galaxy. This is what happens when you threaten humanity. Only General Han survived the war, and only because someone needed to negotiate the peace. He lived another 15 years, but those who knew him said he was never the same. The weight of authorizing the deaths of millions of his own people, the responsibility of being willing to destroy Earth itself, had changed him in ways that couldn't be healed. The humans showed us mercy, Vexthal concluded, his voice barely audible. They could have activated those antimatter devices at any time. They could have turned our worlds into radioactive ash. But they didn't. They let us live. Let us retreat. Let us keep our dignity. Dr. Naldis made notes on her tablet, trying to understand the psychological impact of such a revelation. Why do you think they spared your people? Because destroying us wouldn't have taught the lesson they wanted to teach, Vexthal replied. Humans don't fight to win wars. They fight to prevent future wars. They wanted every species in the galaxy to know what happens when you threaten them. Dead civilizations can't spread warnings. The interview room fell silent as the weight of Vexthal's words settled over them. Through the window, starships from dozens of different species moved through the spaceport, all of them giving human vessels a wide berth. The lesson had been learned. The worst part, Vexthal whispered, is knowing that they were holding back everything we faced. The desperate defenses, the suicide attacks, the willingness to destroy their own worlds. That was humans fighting with restraint. They never showed us their true capabilities because they didn't need to. He looked directly at Dr. Naldis with eyes that had seen too much. Humans don't just fight to win. They fight to teach you never to fight them again. And if you're very, very lucky, they let you live to remember the lesson. Outside the window, a human transport ship departed for Earth, its engines glowing blue against the stars inside that ship. Human diplomats and traders continued the work of building relationships with species that had once considered them primitives. The galaxy had learned to respect humanity not through conquest, but through the demonstration that some species would rather die than be conquered. The war was over. The lesson was learned. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, other species whispered warnings about the small blue world where giants lived. Asterisk, asterisk, the end asterisk, asterisk.